Welcome, friends, to the Wonderfully Made podcast. We're so happy to be with you today. We're back in the studio. For those of you who are new, we are Wonderfully Made. Welcome to our community. I'm here with Allie, Wonderfully Made founder and author of Social Media Reset, a 30-day guided journey to unplug, reconnect with God, and reclaim your joy. So here's the book. We're super excited. It's now available. You can buy it on Amazon or wherever books are found. And we really encourage you, if today's conversation inspires you, grab the book and get a small group of friends together and try this 30-day journey together. So can you share with us what's the story behind the book? Why did you write this book now?
Yeah, so I fell into social media addiction. It was fun when it came out about 20 years ago. Well, it still is fun. There's so many amazing parts about social media. But I found myself, at first it was just photos and, you would just share fun moments and you didn't think about likes or follows or comments. But as the algorithms change and I began to overuse it, I constantly was on it, every lull in my day, constantly tapping my phone, seeing how many likes did I get, how many comments. And I realized that it was really making me more bummed out and feeling like my life wasn't good enough and really distracted from the beauty of my own life, which is so common, right? I mean, everyone kind of who has it really shares those sentiments. But I just decided that I didn't want to live that way. And I didn't want a couple apps on my phone to make me feel bummed out or anxious or feel left out. And also made me hyper self-focused, which for me is not a good thing. And so, I decided that I was going to take a break from it. So I took a long time off of it. And that allowed me to really reset my mind and my heart and just really renew my spirit. And then I was able to realize, okay, I want to put it in its place. I want to master it so it doesn't master me. And so what I did over 10 years ago now is I simply just took all the apps off my phone. I use social media in kind of a radical way with some boundaries, which work for me. But I just saw so many girls and women, really suffer, their joy kind of go away. And I just wanted to provide people an opportunity just to pull back just for 30 days. I mean, I will say social media is not bad. It's like money. It has no morality. It can be used for good or for harm. It's really about how much we use it, what we look at and share, and our motivations behind it. And so I just wanted to give people just this really beautiful opportunity to unplug and really to draw close to God and to wake up to the miracle of their one and only precious life. And it's somewhat of a life coaching journey too, where I'm hoping that readers will begin to show up for their lives with a new level of excitement and intentionality and joy. And so really more than just stepping away from social media for 30 days, it's really resetting your soul and your heart and your mind and stepping into the fullness of this beautiful life that we've been given that is really so fleeting.
There's so much that you just said in that. And I just want to play back a couple of things that I'm sitting with because I also pulled back from social media for the same reasons that you are sharing. And so a couple things that you said, just the discontentment that comes with the scroll, right? It can become another way to numb out or another habit that just isn't serving us. And there's just a tendency on social media to compare our lives to other people's lives. And they're not their real lives. They're just snapshots. But you've said this quote before, comparison is the thief of joy. And that is one of the pitfalls of social media, just as you pointed out, the love of money and thinking that we're going to get our satisfaction or contentment from money is the pitfall of money, but they can also be used for good things. And I really like how you differentiate the intention. What's your intention with social media? Because it is a tool. And, I think for me, when I think about the positive aspects of social media, it's fun to commemorate experiences on social media. It's an amazing platform to share thoughts and insights that we feel like are going to be helpful for the world. I think that you do that really well on there. But recently, actually just last night, like switched my account to private. I haven't been going on there recently, reviewed all of my followers and was like, just refreshing and taking an inventory of how do I want to show up on social media? Who do I want to see what I'm posting? And yeah, because I know in the past when I've posted things because I want likes or I want reactions, and I want validation from social media, that's not the way. So It's really good. And one other thing I want to point out that you said that I think is so key is the 30-day opportunity to become an observer, right? And to experiment with what does it feel like to not prioritize this, to just set it aside for 30 days, be present in my life, be present to all the blessings that are in my life, and become an observer of, it does come up. What was my connection to it? Why was I using it? How was it making me feel? So it's really awesome.
Yeah. And at the end of the reset, I have for 15 boundaries. So you can pull back for a while, and if you want to continue having it in your life, you can learn boundaries. We have a spirit of discipline and self-control, and so we can learn to use it in a way that can mostly add value to our lives and really happily miss out on all the junk that comes with it. And I really do enjoy talking about the gravity of what it is doing to our souls, right? And, we are well aware of what it is doing to our mental health. Everyone talks about it. They know it. The suicide rate among young people ages 10 to 24 increased 62% since the onset of social media. For girls, that was over 145%. And teen girls especially are at the epicenter and are really being preyed upon or through these platforms. And I say social media simply is a world we weren't created to live in. We weren't designed to watch other people's lives or friends' lives or celebrities unfold before us for hours a day, while very often our own lives can go neglected. And really, every second we spend on social media matters. We cannot unsee the things that we see. We cannot unhear the things that we hear. And really, seconds become minutes, become hours, become days, become years of our lives. And it's shocking to a lot of people, but we do need to put this into perspective, right? Because our lives are so beautiful. They're so fleeting and they're irreplaceable. And so if someone was to spend an hour on social media from the age of 13 to 80, and we know that many young people are starting at 9, 10 for hours a day. So just 1 hour can come out to over 3 years of your life. And 2 to 3 hours, 4 to 6 years, and over 4 hours can come out to over 11 years of our lives. And so really we need to step back and think, how do I want to spend my life? What do I want my legacy to be? And I think it is helpful to really know and to understand how fleeting our lives are. And, we have this one shot at living, right? And God didn't have to create us. It's an honor to have a heartbeat and to have breath in our lungs. And this is, our precious life. And I realized, God really saved my life, from depression, and I could have lost my life. And so when you have an experience like that, it completely changes you. And so I see every second of my life as sacred, and my life is God's to live. And when I get to the end of my race, I want to stand before God and say, I did all I could do with the time God gave me. And I want to share some verses about the brevity of our life, right? So David, the psalmist, he wrote a book of prayers in the Old Testament, and they're just beautiful. If you've never read the book of Psalms, I just really want to encourage you to read it. And he says, show me, Lord, my life's end and the number of my days. Let me know how fleeting my life is. You have made my days a mere handbreadth. The span of my years is as nothing before you. Everyone is but a breath, even those who seem secure. And then in Psalm 90, verse 12, he says, teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. And James 4, verse 14 says, "What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes." So I talked a lot there, friend. I don't know. What are your thoughts, or what do you think?
Allie, I mean, there's a lot in what you said. And, just thinking about, like you said, the brevity of our lives and connecting that to if we're in this pattern where we're constantly comparing ourselves to other people or to false things or, unmet expectations for our lives instead of living in the blessing of today, then we're going to miss out on our lives. And the time factor is such a practical, element of that.
Yeah.
Like, teach me to number my days. We don't have infinite days here on earth. We only have very limited time, and nobody really knows how much time they have. And, how sad to spend our really precious life like this.
Yeah, and that's a really great point that you talked about. We talk a lot about the mental health aspects, right? And our heart is for girls and women to live their best lives, to live flourishing lives. And I talk about in the book is it actually really wastes our brain cells. It really steals our intellect. I think of the incredible women of the past who have gone before us and the lives that they have lived, the amazing things that they have done. Marie Curie, she was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize, and she actually won 2 for her research in science. And her work paved the way for helping with cancer and all these incredible things. And each one of us has these untapped and amazing potential and amazing gifts and creativity. And that's what is so unfortunate is it's going neglected. And I think in one of the chapters called Defining Success, I talk about Malcolm Gladwell's the 10,000 hour principle, right? And he studied people who were elite at their craft, whether it was singing or writing or computer programming. And he found that it took people about 10,000 hours to get to be elite at their craft. And that actually came out to 20 hours a week for 10 years. And unfortunately, Christy, 15% of teen girls today are spending over 40 hours a week on their phones. And so that's a big one we have to think about.
That's a full-time job.
Yeah.
That's like you're clocking in at 8, taking an hour lunch and clocking out at 5. That is, that's your life. Those are your waking hours of work right there, 40 hours a week. It's a significant time investment. And you know what I think also, as you're mentioning this, like becoming like an expert at your craft and your unique offering, right? Like each of us has a unique offering. And when we compare our lives to other people or we don't cultivate that offering, we miss out. And here's one thing that I think is just so key. It's so top of mind is that for each of us, we do not need the world's validation. We do not need to be popular. We do not even need to be known in wide public spheres for our contributions to be incredibly valuable to the world. Some of the most impactful people in history, like their names might be obscure, or, finally in history, something comes up and it's like, oh, wow, that person made an amazing contribution. And they're the least known, person. It's just now coming out in history. So I think that that's another element of social media is just, and if we have the right relationship with it, we can put this in its place. We don't need to be known by everybody.
And now we really almost feel like we have to give people, friends, strangers, the world, a front row ticket to our lives. And there's such beauty and power in living a life that is maybe quiet or not sharing all the moments of our lives. I feel like there's some moments of our lives that are just so precious and they're for us to see and for the people in our lives. And so, and also on that note, it's just such a lie today that especially girls are believing is in order to be successful, in order to accomplish your dreams, you have to have thousands of social media followers. And friend, that is simply not true. I was able to get a publishing deal with the largest publisher with like 1,000 followers and at times even a private account. And very often, this is what really keeps us from truly being successful.
Yeah. And I think what you're talking about here is, and what we're talking about is legacy. The legacy of our lives, the way that we spend our time, which equals the legacy of our lives, is not defined by how many followers we have, how many people know us, how popular we are. And I think that is just so key. Each of our lives has so much immense value, and Allie, you had actually, I think, had in mind for me to share the story of visiting the cemetery once on my birthday. Just celebrated another birthday, as we said at the beginning. And a couple of years ago, when I turned 40, I was up in Redwood Country, and I decided that for my birthday, I wanted to start out by going to visit this cemetery in this beautiful little obscure town up by the Oregon border in California. And what I noticed when I went to that cemetery is that some headstones were big and fancy and opulent, and you could tell that the person had been like a person of means, and some headstones were really humble but had really loving inscriptions, and you could just see how important that person was to their family, including there were some headstones that were little, and they were the headstones of babies and that had only lived for a really brief time. And it really struck me how each life held so much value, and different purposes. And I think that's so key for our conversation. When we are constantly looking at other people's lives, we miss out on the still small voice inside of us that speaks to us about our purpose here and the opportunity to build a legacy. Because at the end of the day, what else do we have? Like you said, our lives are very brief. And what we have is what we leave behind here. And that is the way that we spend our days while we're here on earth.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Christy, one of the most terrifying parts of social media, one of the most heartbreaking parts of social media is that we can now die with more memories of other people's lives than of our own. And, you think about spending even just a couple hours a day scrolling. It can come out to about almost 5,000 images or posts and over 2 million a year. And so the thing about seeing photos and videos of other people is so much more imprinted in our brain than a actual memory in the present moment, right? So you and I, we may forget this moment, right? But if we were to see a video of us or a photo, we're much more likely to remember it. And so to think that we can get to the end of our lives and have the kind of movie script in our mind and review all the things that we've seen and heard and realize it was the lives of other people.
That is just hearing you say that, and the mind, right? Our minds, what we choose to believe, what we choose to look at, what we choose to dwell on, determines our life. It determines our state of being, the way that our perspective, which is the reality that we live in. And to live in a false reality is to completely miss out on your life. And when you put it in terms like that, it really becomes like that you feel the weight of it.
Yeah.
And I just think about, for anyone listening today that this is resonating with, where you're like, yeah, I am scrolling a lot. I am comparing myself to people on social media. I am feeling discontent. First of all, good for you for having the self-awareness. Like, that's the first step. And this is an invitation. It's not an accident that you're listening to this episode today. This is an amazing resource, Social Media Reset. And this is it. This is your invitation to step into your life and live your life. And, you know, like you said, I also think about, you know, those of us who realize, you know what, there have been a lot of imprints on my mind, you know, from media, from social media. The good news is that we can retrain our minds. Our minds can be renewed. The Bible talks about be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And the way to do that is to come into a transformative relationship with Jesus Christ. Jesus will walk you through a journey to transform your mind. And it is the best thing that you can possibly do for your life. This world offers us so many ways, so many self-help mechanisms that don't work. And at the end of the day, those things are really powerless. Of course, we have to participate in our own wellness, which is why you wrote this book. But at the end of the day, it's the power of God that enables us to really make lasting change where we're transformed from the inside out.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely has been what has transformed me the most. And unfortunately, too many girls and women are dealing with anxiety or depression or eating disorders or confusion about their identity. And simply that is not God's design for us. He really wants us to thrive and to flourish. And John Eldredge, who's a favorite author of mine, he has a couple books, and he was speaking about how every creature that has been made has a habitat in which it thrives and it flourishes. And he says, you know, a whale can't survive in the desert. A parrot can't survive in Antarctica. And where were we designed? You know, we've gotten so far removed from the original design for life. Well, we were created to live in a garden and to hug the earth and to, you know, plant flowers in the dirt and to look at shooting stars and to live these beautiful embodied lives with actually not many people. You know, originally we were designed for about a community of about 150 people to only know the happenings that are actually physically around us, right? And so when our lives are so hard already, you know, we have our own struggles, heartbreaks, disappointments, stressors, and the human soul simply cannot take on the atrocities of the world, the chaos. And so what we really need to do is to make our environment smaller, right? And actually, people who watched the Twin Tower attacks on 9/11, who watched them on TV, had the same level of PTSD as people who were actually there. And so it's a really invitation to come back to the practices, you know, that really make us flourish, you know, silence and solitude and true face-to-face community, hospitality, breaking bread together, working in the earth, creating things with our hands, you know, being outside, taking those walks, talking to God, thumbing through the pages of a real book, right? So the more that we can return to the natural rhythms that, you know, the natural way God created us for, that environment, we're going to be well. We're going to be more well in our body and our mind and our spirit. And so what we're seeing with this mental health crisis today with so many people, it really is lifestyle induced, it's technologically induced, and it really is unnecessary. And I say that in order to have joy like no one else, we have to live like no one else. And living our best life and walking in fullness and abundance, it requires sacrifices. And it really requires that we live different lives, right? God invites us into a better, though unpopular, way of life.
Yeah. And, you know, to your point, you know, you say this, God has our best interest at heart. The media is a business, and the job of businesses is to get us to use their products as frequently and as often and as much as possible, because that equals revenue for the business, which equals revenue for the shareholders, right?
I want to talk about Meta and their intentions behind it. But before I do, I want to say if you're struggling with an eating disorder, with depression or anxiety, this is a hard truth, but you are simply not going to fully break free and heal while you scroll endlessly, while you look at the lives of maybe other women or the atrocities of the world. We simply cannot heal while we live here. And, so often, we're seeing counselors, we're on medication, but we're still here.
And when you say here, for those of you who are listening, we mean on the phone.
Yeah, on your phone. Yeah,
On
thank
your
you. I'm
phone.
doing
Yeah,
the
yeah,
visual.
yeah.
Right. And so, yes, it's hard not to be on social media like everyone else. It's hard to feel like you're missing out, but it is a lot harder to have depression. It is a lot harder to have an eating disorder. And it's a lot harder to, have thoughts of ending our lives. And so for so many people, they go off for a couple of days, a week, and their hearts, their minds begin to heal. And so that's something a hard truth I want to share with people is we have to make sacrifices if we want to be well. We have to take part in our healing journey if we want to have freedom. And it's a hard truth, but we have to ask ourselves, what kind of life do I want to live? Do I want to be free? Do I want to be whole? And it's not about saying no to something. It's about saying yes to freedom and joy and to the fullness of this life. So I had to put that in there.
It's true. And what I hear you saying is it's an invitation, right? It's not a mandate. We all have agency. Each of us, you listening today, you have agency to make whatever choice you want to make. But the invitation is that we step into the fullness of the lives that we were created for. And in order to do that, we have to make the conscious decision to set aside the things that are not of worth, to take hold of the things that are of worth. And there can be pain in that process, but at the end, there is a state of joy and peace and freedom and courage that can only emerge when we go to the source of it, which is, like you said, not our phones and really not anywhere else except for the person of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and so I want to talk about Meta, Facebook, now Meta. They do not have our best interest in mind. They really don't, right? Their goal is really to generate revenue, to make money. And so, we think that it's really free, that it's fun, and that we're the user, right? But we actually have become the product that is being sold. And so every year, in the past year, they have generated about $320 billion based off of advertising. And we know how targeted these ads are, what they know about us, what we like. They even know kind of what mood we've been in. And they really prey right upon that. And they know exactly what we want and when we want it. And sometimes you'll be talking about something.
It's true. It's like weird. It's like, are you listening to my conversations?
It is,
like, how did you? And sometimes what's really weird when you're not even talking about something and it pops up on your phone, and it's like, just all that data from when we were born.
And so they actually hired human behavioral scientists to study our psychology, to create their platforms to really, in a way, prey upon our desire to be liked and seen and known. And so what happens every time we, get a notification from a new like or comment is we have a hit of dopamine in our brain, and that is a neurochemical that is associated with pleasure. The same hit that you might get from drugs or gambling or another addiction. And so it keeps us wanting to come back for more. And they utilized and created these psychological manipulation tools, such as the like button, right? Which is a measure of human approval, of social validation, the infinite scroll, which is kind of the concept of variable rewards, right? It's like a handheld slot machine, right? To keep us on there as long as possible. And, the search and explore section, and they design this, right? And we are really not the user. We're really the product. And actually what's wild is the ARPU, which is basically the average revenue per user, is about $50 a person. So to think that Meta is actually generating about $50 per person throughout the year is really wild. And, they had their own findings. The whistleblower, Frances Haugen, came out and talked about Facebook's internal studies that they absolutely knew the like button especially was causing all these issues among users, especially girls. And they really didn't do anything about it. And, so there's so much we can talk about, friends.
What was that one movie that I think is a great
Social
resource?
Dilemma.
The Social Dilemma. And, employees that were working, pretty high up at Meta and other companies don't let their kids use social media because they know what's behind it. And I think it's a good gut check for us with our loved ones, whoever they are, and with ourselves. So
Yeah, well, let's talk really quick. There's so much we can talk about. The benefits of a reset are really endless. Actually, studies have shown that just almost 3 to 5 a week off instantly decreases anxiety, depression, increases happiness, right? Productivity, true community. I mean, the benefits are rest. Like I said, the goal of the journey is not to get to the end of it and never go back to social media. Many people will make that decision. And in some ways, I hope some people do. But again, it's not a bad thing, right? I mean, it can cause a lot of bad, and it has in our society. But again, it's about pulling back and learning, we can come back to it in a more balanced and healthy way. I do want to share something Wonderfully Made is doing, that how we are using social media and leveraging it through good. And so I had this idea came to me to use YouTube to buy these targeted ads to young women, right? That are actually encouragement, right? So I filmed this little video on my phone. We're purchasing these YouTube ads, and you can tailor your ads to certain demographics and ages and female, male. And so all of a sudden, say a young woman is watching a video of her favorite influencer, right? Well, here comes Allie Marie Smith, and I just hop on the screen and I say, you are so loved and you have so much value. And there's a purpose for your life. Do you ever feel like you're not good enough or wonder why you're here? And then go on to share my story, battling depression and the depths of where I went and how I overcame it. And it's so phenomenal, Christy, for $3,000. This message has been viewed over 700,000 times. And the average watch time is 1 minute and 10 seconds. And so that usually the average watch time on an ad is 5 seconds. So it's so cool how we're using this. Our goal, the suicide rate among girls went up 45%. Our goal, our hope as an organization, as a ministry, is to reverse that, right? And to do all we can to usher in really a revival among young women so they know their value, their purpose, their worth, and they can step into the fullness of life. And so that's a big, hope that we have.
I want to say too, it really starts with each of us. The power is in your hands, right? And I think what you just shared about the way that the ministry is using social media is a great example of that. And I know people who have a really healthy relationship with social media who use it for good. But the bottom line is the power is in your hands. You get to make the decision, and each of us do.
Yeah. So, I don't write books to make a lot of money. You just don't usually make a lot of money writing books, but I know this is a message, and I know this is a resource that can change lives, and just encourage you to do it with friends, your whole friend group, your book club, your Bible study, to take this reset together and just make it a really cool experience to unplug, reclaim your joy, do fun things, really live life as it was intended to be lived off of a device, and to live these beautiful embodied lives. So I want to close by sharing, it's kind of a hard-hitting quote here, but, this is serious. And so this is I say that I predict one of the greatest regrets people will have when they get to the end of their lives today is how much time they spent on their phones. I want to share this shocking quote by a man named William Irvine, and he warned us of the danger of misliving. And he said, there is a danger that you will mislive, that despite all your activity, despite all the pleasant diversions you might have enjoyed while alive, you will end up living a bad life. There is, in other words, a danger that when you are on your deathbed, you will look back and realize that you wasted your one chance in living. And like, that is such a hard truth.
And you know what? It doesn't have to be your truth. It doesn't have to be your reality. And I think that's right. It's like, I think a quote like that is so important because it is true. That can happen. And sadly, it is happening to so many people. And I think today, Allie's saying, don't let that be you. Don't mislive. You don't have to. We do not have to mislive. There's traps everywhere in this world. You know, there's a lot more waiting for us on our phone. I think what you said earlier is, it's so simple, but it's so true. You know, there's enough challenges in real life. We don't need to give ourselves even more through social media, you know. But I think the invitation in that quote is live, and the invitation I hear you issuing is live your beautifully precious, brief life here. Number your days, right? Teach us to number our days aright that we may gain a heart of wisdom. We don't know how many days we have left. That's why I like going to cemeteries sometimes. It's a sacred reality check that this life is precious, and we're building a legacy with our choices.
Yeah, so I want to ask you, you know, with no likes to gain or followers, how would you live your life? You know, what would you do? What do you want to do with the days God gives you? And really, when you get to the end of your life and you really stand before God and you give an account for your life, what will it take you to say you did all you could do with the time God gave you?
I love this quote too. It's amazing what we can accomplish when we don't care who gets the credit.
Is Ronald Reagan?
I think it might be. I don't know.
Yeah.
Look at, you can Google.
I think it was.
Yeah. I'm like, you can Google it. But it's so true, and it's so liberating.
Oh my gosh, Christy, there's so much more I want to say. But one other thing I talked about is I have a chapter in the book called A Glorious Adventure, right? And in our culture as women, we're conditioned to believe that in order to be happy, in order to have the best life we can have, we have to look how she looks. We have to have what she has. And that causes us to live these very shallow, self-focused lives. And actually, when we live these lives that are bigger than ourselves and we help people, we serve people, that is truly when we become free, when we live on mission. And I just wonder what we could do as a generation of girls and women if we looked away from our devices, we looked up to God, and we looked up to the deep hungers of our world. What a beautiful life. We could save hundreds of thousands of girls from sex trafficking. We can, end poverty in a certain country. I mean, we are created for so much more than a self-focused life. And there is such beauty and joy in living for God and living, to help other people and to serve other people. And there's just so much joy and freedom in that.
A lot of times we search to fill the hole. Social media is one way that we do that. And that, whether the other ways we do it, we all know relationships, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's only a relationship with God who can meet that need. So that's the invitation for you listening today. If, you listened to today's conversation and came in not really sure of Jesus or what you think about him, that's my testimony, is that Jesus is the only one who's ever been able to meet that need. And if you have any questions, please reach out to Allie, reach out to me. You can do that through our website, wonderfullymade.org.
Yeah. Thank you, friend, for having this conversation. Thank you all for listening. You can grab a copy of the book wherever books are sold. And our heart for you is for you to know your value, to know how loved you are by God, to walk with God, and to experience the fullness and the beauty of this life, although it's not an easy life. And we are invited really into this flourishing life of purpose and joy. So thank you, friends, for listening. Again, you can learn more about us, sources, learn about our events, more about what we offer at wonderfullymade.org. And also on my website, alliemariesmith.com, I have a free quiz you can take to find out how social media is affecting your well-being. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we're so thankful that you're here. And God bless you. And may he make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you.